Steve Wood. I was listening to Leah and Mike's show yesterday, and they told a story of when Tom Cruise was in the gold base, somebody addressed him as Tom instead of Sir, and he was immediately demoted, sent to do hard manual labor, and eventually sent to the RPF. Then I realized you too were also sent to the RPF. Did you think the entire time you were there that this was good for you and you deserve this awful situation, as it would make you a better Scientologist? If being sent to the RPF doesn't give you a second thoughts about your decisions in joining Scientology, I don't know what would. Hey, Steve, thanks for this question. Yeah, of course I had doubts and problems when I was on the RPF about my Scientology involvement, participation, membership, etc. You can't hit the RPF. You have hit bottom when you hit the RPF, absolute bottom. Like there is no lower place to go. And generally speaking, people who hit the RPF have hit the lowest part of their entire life, or that's how they think about it. So you don't hit that and then not reflect on what got you there and your circumstances and whether these are the best circumstances for you. Let me elaborate a little bit on my own personal experience with this. You know, you mentioned this thing about Tom Cruise and he was supposed to be called Sir and this kind of thing. That's just Miscavige Cruise, conceit and arrogance. And that's why I say Tom Cruise is just a big dick, right? It's because this is the kind of thing he's absolutely 100% in support of. Tom Cruise would have no problem at all with somebody being sent to the RPF for disrespecting him. That's Tom Cruise's ego. So he's him and Miscavige are peas in a pod. So don't walk away from this thinking that this is like, oh well, Tom didn't know. Tom knew. Now, as far as getting back to the RPF thing though, let me describe this in a little bit more detail for you. When I hit the RPF, I was like everybody else who hits it at rock bottom, and for the first month that I was there, I was about as much of a mess as I have ever been. I mean, it's probably, I'll just say worse situation, worse condition, worse mental state. A lot of bouncing. Well, it felt very much like the best metaphor I can give you for what was going on in my mind for that first month that I was on the RPF was like a hard rubber ball bouncing off the walls of my mind. It was faster and faster trying to keep up with that thing. And every time it hit a wall, it hurt, it was like, I mean, it's weird. I know that sounds weird, but it was a weird place to be. It's hard to remember exactly the crazy of it. I remember some of the thoughts and feelings about it in the deep, deep, deep emotional wells of regret and shame and just feeling like I was just the worst human being who had ever lived. But also then bouncing between that and what the hell am I doing here? I don't deserve this. This isn't right, but then I do deserve it. I mean, there were big double binds there in terms of I do deserve it, I don't deserve it, this is what I need, this isn't what I need. I mean, it was really kind of crazy making. I was bouncing mostly around the idea of a plan B. What if this doesn't work out? What if I can't make this? This is the hardest thing I've ever had to deal with, running around, the physical labor, the getting yelled at from day one of arriving to the RPF, people screaming at you, move faster, run harder, run faster, blah! It's all about kind of hazing you into the process, actually. There was this one guy who took it upon himself to do that. And he was really giving me quite a hard time at the beginning, making you work harder, carry more, do more than you ever imagine you are physically comfortable doing. I mean, I was way out of my comfort zone. There was no comfort zone allowed. If there is a mantra or a motto for the RPF, it's that there is no comfort zone here. It was bad. So this plan B that was kind of bouncing around in my head was maybe I could leave the Sea Org, go establish some kind of life for myself where I could, get a job, make some money or something. I was trying to what could I be? What could I do? For some reason I was hung up on maybe being a private investigator or something. It was weird. I don't know where that was coming from, but it was a very strong idea that I had at the time that I could use my Scientology skills to, as a manager and evaluator and analyst or something, to go do private investigator work or something and to make money that way. And I thought, that I would only have my parents. I wouldn't have any more friends. All the friends I had in the entire world were Scientologists. So, and Sea Org members, right? By this point, I'd been in the Sea Org for 8-9 years at this point. So I didn't have any other connections outside of the Sea Org. So the idea of being cast adrift in the big wide world that I have not been in like 10 years, 8 to 10 years, somewhere in there by this point. I'd been in the Sea Org. So I'm out of the real world. I've got no friends in the real world, and I've got parents who I think of as disaffected Scientologists. So there's still something wrong with them. They're not persona non grata. I love my parents, but they're not hardcore Scientologists like I am. So am I going to leave this group of people, all these connections, all these relationships, including, by the way, my wife, who I loved and I was married to, and I was doing this program for her more than anybody else because of how I'd gotten there. And so all of this is going through my head. And this plan B, I could still leave, I could still get out of here, I could change this up, did not look very appealing. That plan B did not appeal to me. It wasn't like, oh yeah, I get out of here and then I can go, what? Do what? I mean, there's no certainty there. There's no job there. There's no place to live there. There's no car there. There's nothing. It's a dive into the great wide blackness of I don't know what's going to happen to me. So at least, I mean, if that's clear, at least with the Sea Org and the RPF, I've got a program of steps that I need to get through. And once I get through them, I get my life back. I get to get back into the Sea Org. I get to get my wife. I get to get back on post. I get all my friends back. All I got to do is get through this program. I know exactly what I need to do. I just need to do it. And then everything gets back to normal. Normal for me as a Sea Org member, right? Because again, I was already in the Sea Org for 8 to 10 years. It was my normal. I say 8 to 10. I can't remember exactly. I mean, I think it was, let's just say 9. So there I am, right? With the devil in the deep blue sea. What am I going to do? Well, I stuck with it because it was the more sure, certain, positive thing to do. And mostly because it was the most known set of circumstances for me. Diving off that diving board into the great white, great blackness of uncertainty. I could be dead in a month. I mean, what if my parents reject me? What if? Like, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen, right? It's not like I could pick up the phone and call my mom when I was on the RPF. I couldn't call anybody. I didn't have any access to any resources, So what was I going to do? So that's kind of the situation I was in, and I was not alone in that. Other RPFers certainly experienced similar things. I've talked to people, since that time, and I wasn't the only one having that kind of a hard time, But it's like we talk about these, cognitive dissonance and motivated reasoning, and I throw these words around, and this is what it actually translates to in the real experience of life is, and that's where my head was at that whole time. So did I think that that I deserved it, and this awful situation was gonna make me a better Scientologist? Yeah, I did. I really did. Because I subscribed to a moral code that said what I did was wrong. And I agreed with that. At the time, I thought, I was brainwashed into agreeing with that. There was a whole lot of work done in order to get me to agree to that. But I did agree to it. I mean, that's where my head was at. I look back now and I think to myself that, it was a bit nuts that I ever agreed to any part of that, but I can see that it wasn't, there was a long road of agreements that lead you to that place. So you don't just appear one day on the RPF. Okay, so, and then I did think that it was going to make me a better Scientologist. I did. I thought, I have evil purposes. This auditing will deal with my evil purposes. Those evil purposes have been the thing that have gotten me here. And in fact, there is one last thing on this, and I think I've talked about this before, but I'll say it out loud here again. I was so far down the line. I was so beaten. I was so dejected. I was so down on myself that I didn't see any other way out. And the thing that hit me, here's what happened to me that turned that around. And this might not make a lot of sense to everybody, but I'm just going to tell you anyway, is I realized at that time, I came to a thought that the road that had led me to the RPF, led me to this sad sack state of affairs, was all my own doing. Because remember, in Scientology, you are responsible for your own condition. So I owned that. I wanted to be a good Scientologist. I wanted to be a good person. And I defined myself as those two are the same thing. A good person is a good Scientologist. So in order to be a good Scientologist, I had to be on the road to freedom, the road to truth, discover the answers, get myself out of this mess, following the path that L. Ron Hubbard gave us. So from that point of view, I thought to myself that I had arrived to the RPF and I had landed there because I had been dramatizing this evil purpose that I had deep inside of me to kill myself, to do away with myself, to get rid of me. And that made sense to me at that time, in that moment. I was like, oh, I've been doing this all to myself, and I've got to get myself out of this. And that wasn't true. Objectively speaking, that was not a true statement. I was not the only person who put myself in that position. I did not do all of that to myself, and I was not fully responsible for my own condition. There were a lot of other people who helped me arrive at that place and did things to me, abused me, hurt me, in order for me to get there. But at that time, in that place, that's how I saw the world. And that was the thing that kind of turned it around for me, was, oh, I got to get myself out of this. And that was true enough. I did need to get myself out of that. And it took way longer than it should have. If I'd really had my head on straight at that moment, I would have walked away. I would have just gotten the hell out of the whole situation. But I didn't have my head on straight. I had all these things I've been describing to you as all these other things I was thinking about and thinking with, Scientology being front and center. And so, so you ask, did I really think I deserved it? And did I really think it was going to make me a better person? Yeah, I really did. And I could not have been more wrong. But that's what I thought. So that's what, that's what cult indoctrination and brainwashing and all that, that's what it does to you, is it screws with your head and it makes you think that, black is white, red is blue, up is down, and freedom is slavery. So I hope that communicates. I'm trying to give you the most inner thoughts of that time and place so that I can get that across. And I hope it's working. So there you go, Steve.